In 1978, something strange happened at St. Mercy Hospital in Ohio. Two newborn babies disappeared from the maternity ward just hours after being born. No ransom notes, no witnesses, no clues. For 8 long years, the case remained unsolved, cold, buried, and quietly forgotten. Then one day, a retired nurse stepped forward. What she confessed shocked everyone. But the truth she revealed was only the beginning. Because once the truth came out, everything else began to unravel, layer by horrifying layer. And it all started in that hospital, on that rainy day in 1978. The rain beat hard against the windows of St. Mercy Hospital. It was October 3rd, 1978, just after midnight. Nurses moved quickly through the dimly lit maternity wing, and the air smelled of antiseptic and coffee. Inside room 208, Jessica Marshall was drenched in sweat, gripping the metal bars of her hospital bed. She was only 19, but already her face looked 10 years older from the hours of labor. Her husband, Tom, stood by her side, hands trembling. A nurse named Carol kept dabbing her forehead. At 2:11 a.m., Jessica gave birth to 2 identical twin boys. The delivery room echoed with the sound of newborn cries. Jessica smiled through tears. "They're beautiful," she whispered. Tom nodded, brushing her hair back. "We'll call them Adam and Eli." The nurse wrapped both babies in white blankets, placed them into clear hospital cribs, and wheeled them out to the nursery. Jessica wanted to protest but was too exhausted. That was the last time she saw them. By sunrise, something felt wrong. Jessica woke up in a panic. Tom had gone home to shower. She rang the bell for a nurse. Carol didn't come. Neither did anyone else for 10 long minutes. Finally, a young man in scrubs entered the room. Jessica asked for her babies. He looked confused, then worried. "Hang tight, I'll check with the nurse station." He didn't come back. Another 15 minutes passed. Jessica rang the bell again. No answer. Then 2 men in suits walked in, detectives. They introduced themselves quickly, but their faces said everything before they even spoke. "Jessica," one of them said, "we need to ask you some questions about your sons." Her world collapsed. The hospital had called the police. No one could find her babies. They were gone. The hospital was locked down within the hour. Nurses were interrogated. Security cameras were checked. But in 1978, there were only 3 grainy cameras in the whole maternity ward, and none of them were working that night due to a power surge during the storm. The nursery door showed no sign of being forced open. No windows were broken, no footprints, no witnesses, no answers. Every mother on the floor was questioned. Every janitor, every doctor. The police even investigated Tom, but he had an alibi. At the time of the disappearance, he was already on the freeway driving back to the hospital. The news exploded across Ohio by noon. Twin boys vanished from hospital cribs, no clues, no suspects. Jessica was sedated after she began screaming in the hallway. Tom punched a wall and broke 2 fingers. By the end of the week, the investigation hit a wall. And by the end of the month, the world moved on. 8 years passed. It was now 1986. Jessica never recovered. Her marriage fell apart in the 3rd year. Tom moved to Michigan and remarried. Jessica stayed in their old home, surrounded by photos of boys she never knew. She kept their baby blankets in a drawer, untouched. She had gone through therapy, 2 suicide attempts, and 3 different medications. But nothing brought peace. Then, one morning in February, she got a phone call that would change everything. It was a man named Deputy Marcus Grady, a detective with the county sheriff's department. He said a retired nurse had come in with information about the missing twins. Jessica dropped the phone. At the station, Jessica sat across from a woman in her 70s, thin, pale, wrinkled, but there was something cold behind her eyes. Her name was Ruth Wallace. She had worked at St. Mercy for 31 years. Ruth sat silently for almost 5 minutes. Finally, she leaned forward. "I know what happened to your sons," she whispered. Jessica's heart stopped. Ruth continued, "I didn't take them, but I saw something terrible. I kept quiet because I was scared. But now I'm dying. I can't carry it anymore." The room went still. Then Ruth spoke 3 words that turned the case upside down. It was planned. Ruth claimed she saw a man in a white coat wheeling the 2 babies out of the nursery that night. She assumed he was a doctor. But the next day, she realized no doctor was scheduled for that shift. She asked questions. The head nurse told her to keep her mouth shut, said the man was from a government agency and she was not to interfere. When she pushed further, she got transferred to a different ward. Years passed and she stayed quiet until her recent cancer diagnosis. Now with 6 months to live, she wanted to confess. Detective Grady asked, "Did you know the man?" Ruth nodded slowly, "Not well, but I know where he lived." A week later, a SWAT team surrounded a farmhouse on the edge of Ohio's border with Pennsylvania. It was the last known address of a man named Dr. Vernon Blake, a former military surgeon who disappeared in the early 1980s. The house looked abandoned, but as the team closed in, gunfire rang out from the back room. Jessica watched live news coverage with trembling hands. Inside the house, police found files, dozens of them, folders with baby photos, names, hospital records, and dates, all from the 1970s. But Dr. Blake was gone. The house had a secret tunnel beneath it, and he had vanished again, leaving only ashes in the fireplace and the lingering smell of smoke. The files suggested something much bigger than a kidnapping, and something much darker. Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you are watching from today and what time you are currently watching this video. If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more. The farmhouse was crawling with law enforcement. Flashlights scanned every inch of the dark basement where the hidden tunnel had been discovered. Dust rose from the floor as agents lifted wooden planks and kicked in locked cabinets. Deputy Marcus Grady stood in the center of it all, holding a thick red folder labeled Infant Subjects, Phase B. Jessica Marshall sat in a small room at the police station, staring at the same folder 2 hours later. She didn't blink. Her fingers clutched the arms of her chair. Inside were photos, dozens. Some were blurry, but 2 stood out. A pair of newborns wrapped in white blankets. Their names were handwritten beneath the pictures. Adam Marshall, Eli Marshall. Jessica pressed the photos to her chest and began to cry. Across the table, Grady watched her carefully. These records go back years, but this folder was placed near the top. As if it mattered more, Jessica wiped her eyes. Why would someone do this? Why my boys? Grady hesitated. We think this was part of an unauthorized government experiment. We don't have all the pieces yet, but it looks like infants were taken for some kind of early behavioral study, possibly related to military training, maybe mind conditioning. It's not clear yet. Jessica stared at him. You're telling me they were raised like lab rats? Grady shook his head. I don't think it's that simple. We found something else. He reached into a manila envelope and pulled out a photograph, this one recent. 2 boys about 8 years old standing in front of a small airplane hangar. They looked strong. Their faces, one slightly taller, one with a small scar under his chin, were familiar. Jessica gasped. That's them, Grady explained what they'd uncovered. The hangar in the photo was located in West Virginia, nearly 150 miles from the farmhouse. It belonged to a man named Graham Cole, a former defense contractor with ties to psychological warfare research. He went off the grid in 1980 after being accused of unethical trials. Now, Grady believed he was the one raising the missing children. There was only one problem. By the time police arrived at the airfield, it was empty. They found bunk beds, military-style gear, and a room full of toys. But no children. What they did find was blood. Small drops on a mattress. Grady didn't tell Jessica about that part. Not yet. Meanwhile, 180 miles away, in a dense forest near the Virginia border, 2 boys ran through the trees, dirt smeared across their faces. Their clothes, camouflage shirts, and heavy boots were torn at the sleeves. Adam carried a small backpack. Eli held a flashlight in one hand and a pistol in the other. They were only 8, but their eyes were sharp, alert, like they'd been trained for something far more dangerous than childhood. They stopped at a stream to drink. Adam glanced back. You think they'll follow us? Eli nodded. They're already looking. Then we can't stop. Adam reached into the backpack and pulled out a folded map. There were pencil marks across several locations. We need to find the house with the red roof, he said. Eli looked confused. Why? Because that's where she is. The woman from the picture. I think she's our mom. Eli stayed quiet. He didn't know what a mom felt like. All he knew were drills, sirens, voices through loudspeakers. "We move at dawn," Adam said. "No noise, no tracks." Eli gripped the pistol tighter. Back in Ohio, Jessica was taken into protective custody. Grady suspected whoever was behind the experiment might come for her next, either to silence her or use her as bait. They moved her to a safe house outside Columbus. It was guarded by state troopers, and Grady stayed in a room down the hall. Jessica barely slept. She kept thinking of the boys, how they looked, how their eyes seemed to know things children shouldn't know. At 3:12 a.m., a power outage hit the block. The house went dark. Grady jumped from bed, pulled his weapon from the nightstand, and ran to Jessica's room. She was already awake, clutching a kitchen knife. "Stay down," he whispered. Footsteps creaked from outside. 2 black vans pulled up in front of the house. Men in dark uniforms stepped out, no badges, no markings. They carried silenced rifles and moved like professionals. One of them spoke into a radio, confirmed. "Target inside." Grady looked out the window. "We've got company." Jessica froze. "Are they here for me?" "I think they're here to erase everything." Grady led her out the back. A narrow path cut through the woods behind the house. As they ran, a gunshot cracked through the silence. A bullet shattered the back window just behind them. More shots followed, muffled but deadly. Grady pulled Jessica into the trees and fired back blindly. One of the men dropped. They kept running for miles until they reached a gas station. Grady stole a parked pickup and peeled off down the road, Jessica in the passenger seat still clutching the kitchen knife. By morning, news of the attack broke. The safe house was destroyed. 3 officers were dead. The vans had disappeared. No plates, no trace. This was bigger than any one case. Jessica realized something terrifying. Whoever took her sons didn't want them found. And now, whoever was helping cover it up was willing to kill to keep it that way. Grady pulled the truck over on a dirt road. They sat in silence. Dust hung in the air. Jessica finally whispered, "We need to find them before they find us." Grady nodded. "I know where to start." He opened the glove box and pulled out another photo. It showed a man in a lab coat standing beside Graham Cole in front of a trailer home in Tennessee. Grady tapped the picture. "This guy. His name's Malcolm Brent, ex-military, kicked out for illegal testing on kids. If anyone knows where your boys went, it's him." Jessica looked at the photo, then back at Grady. "Let's go." As they drove off, neither of them noticed the black drone hovering quietly above the treetops, watching, tracking, listening. The road stretched endlessly ahead, a dusty ribbon cutting through Tennessee hills. Deputy Marcus Grady gripped the wheel of the pickup, his eyes flicking between the road and the mirror. Jessica sat beside him, silent, her knuckles white around the photo of Malcolm Brent. They had been driving for 6 hours. The last gas station had no cameras. Grady had chosen that one on purpose. The fewer people who saw them, the better. Jessica kept asking the same question in her head. What if we're already too late? Grady broke the silence. This Brent guy, he was a behavioral specialist for the Army, ran boot camps for kids back in the early 70s. Rumors say he kept some of them after discharge. Nobody asked questions. Jessica turned toward him. He trained children like soldiers, Grady nodded. And not in classrooms, in woods. In cages. He disappeared in '82. Some said he was taken out. Others think he went off grid. Jessica stared out the window. Let's just hope he stayed put. 200 miles away in a remote shack hidden deep in Virginia's pine woods, Adam and Eli sat by a small fire. The night was cold, and their bodies were shaking, not from the weather, but from what they'd heard on the stolen radio. 3 agents dead, Eli whispered, barely loud enough to hear. They shot at our mother. Adam clenched his fists. They're trying to erase us. Eli looked at the pistol lying between them. We need more than that. Adam pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. A code was written on it, something they'd memorized years ago. It had been part of a game Graham Cole used to play with them, teaching them to decrypt messages. Only it wasn't a game, it was a real address. Next stop, Adam said, is Nashville. The safe house. Eli's eyes widened. That's where the files are, Adam nodded. Cole kept backups there. He thought we didn't know. They packed up quickly. In 5 minutes, they were gone again like shadows. In Nashville, Grady pulled the pickup off a back road and parked behind a rusted diner called Lou's BBQ. The address on the back of the old photo led them here. A metal trailer sat beside the diner, half covered in overgrown weeds. The windows were painted black. "No lights, this is it," Grady said. He slid a pistol into the back of his jeans and handed Jessica a small can of pepper spray. "Stay behind me." They walked slowly toward the trailer. The wooden steps creaked under their feet. Grady knocked. No answer. He tried the door. Locked. Then came the sound from inside. A single footstep. Grady kicked the door in. The room was dark, filled with old screens and paper files. In the corner, an old man stood frozen. He had a limp, gray hair and a scar that ran from his temple to his chin. "Malcolm Brent?" Grady asked, weapon raised. The man didn't flinch. "Depends who's asking." Jessica stepped forward. "Where are my sons?" Brent's eyes narrowed. He scanned her face. "You're Jessica." "I want the truth," she snapped. Brent exhaled and sat on a metal chair. "The boys. They were the only ones who escaped the full program." "That makes them dangerous." Grady frowned. "What program?" Brent looked up. "You ever hear of Project Dagger?" Grady lowered his gun slightly. "I've heard whispers. Didn't think it was real." "It was real," Brent said. "Government wanted to build soldiers from birth. Start with infants. Condition them young. Make them obey without question. It got shut down officially in '75, but the rogue elements kept it alive. That's when Graham Cole took over." Jessica felt her stomach twist. "You were part of it," Brent nodded. "Until I saw what he was doing. Starvation. Sleep training. Isolation. I tried to report it. They came after me. I disappeared." Jessica moved closer. "Are my sons alive?" "Yes. I've been tracking them since they broke out." Grady tensed. "Where are they now?" Before Brent could answer, the wall behind them exploded. Gunfire tore through the trailer. Jessica dove to the floor. Grady shielded her as bullets ripped through the metal walls. Brent screamed as he took a hit to the leg and fell backward. Two men in black burst through the broken side wall. Silencers hissed. Grady rolled, fired twice, and hit one in the shoulder. The man dropped his weapon. The other attacker ducked behind a file cabinet and returned fire. Jessica crawled to the corner, pulled Brent behind cover. "You armed?" Grady shouted. Brent reached into his boot and tossed Grady a compact revolver. Grady caught it, then fired again. He struck the second attacker in the knee. The man collapsed, howling in pain. Grady rushed him, pinned him to the ground, and shouted, "Who sent you?" The man spat blood. "You're already dead. All of you." Grady pistol whipped him unconscious. Smoke filled the trailer. Outside, tires screeched. More men were coming. Grady helped Jessica and Brent out the back and into the woods. They ran hard, dodging trees, stumbling through branches. When they finally reached the pickup, Brent collapsed. "I can't run anymore," he gasped. "But I can give you this." He pulled a piece of metal from his pocket, a flash drive. "Everything's on here," he wheezed. "Names, locations, the truth." Jessica took it, handshaking. "We need to find my sons." "Now?" Brent smiled weakly. "You're closer than you think." Hours later, inside a dusty storage unit in a different part of Nashville, Adam and Eli cracked open the safe hidden behind a false wall. Inside were 3 boxes. They opened the first, filled with papers, birth certificates, and photos. The second contained more files, labeled Surveillance Footage, St. Mercy Hospital, October 3rd, 1978. The third had something heavier. Guns, tactical gear, cash. Adam picked up a photo at the top of the third box. It showed Jessica Marshall, smiling, holding 2 babies. Eli stepped beside him. "That's her." Adam nodded. "We're getting close." Suddenly, headlights flashed through the thin cracks in the storage door. Eli turned off the light. Adam grabbed the pistol. They waited. Footsteps crunched outside. One of them whispered, "Check inside." Quietly, Eli flicked the safety off. Adam mouthed the words, "No mercy." Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you are watching from today and what time you are currently watching this video. If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more. Adam pressed his back against the cold steel wall of the storage unit. The gun in his hand felt heavier than usual. Eli crouched beside him, breathing slow and steady. The thin metal door rattled as footsteps circled outside. They had been trained for this, not schoolyard fights or playground games, real situations. Situations where hesitation got you killed. A voice whispered outside, muffled by the steel. Storage 17, this one. Another step, then silence. Adam motioned with his fingers. 3, 2, 1. He kicked the door open. The man on the other side wasn't ready. Adam fired once, hitting him in the shoulder. The man dropped with a cry. Eli charged forward and hit the second attacker in the knee with the metal flashlight. The man dropped his rifle, and Adam kicked it away. The boy aimed the gun at the man's chest. "Don't move." The man, bleeding and groaning, raised his hands. "Who sent you?" Eli asked. No answer. Adam stepped forward, gun still raised. "We won't ask again," the man coughed. Cole wants you back." Eli looked at his brother. "He knows we found the files." Adam said nothing. He knew what had to be done. They tied the man's hands with a cord from the box and dragged him inside. Eli pulled the rolling unit door back down and locked it from the inside. Then they turned to the open file boxes. Inside one of the folders, Adam spotted something new, a printed photo. It was recent, no more than a week old. It showed Jessica and a man he didn't recognize getting into a truck. His hands trembled slightly. "She's real." Eli peered at the photo. "You think she'll help us?" Adam looked toward the tied man who had gone silent. "I don't know," he said, "but we're going to find her." Just 10 miles away, Jessica, Grady, and Brent arrived at an old, safe house on the edge of a quiet Tennessee neighborhood. It looked abandoned, but Grady knew otherwise. He used a crowbar to break the rusted lock and led them inside. The air was musty. Spiderwebs hung from the ceiling. But the back room was still intact, lined with maps, equipment, and a small refrigerator. Brent slumped into a chair, holding his bandaged leg. "They'll keep sending more. They won't stop until every piece is gone." Grady looked at Jessica. "We need help." Jessica nodded. "Who do you trust?" Grady thought for a moment. "There's a guy named Terrence Locke, ex-CIA. He runs a private intel group now. If anyone can help us locate your boys, it's him." Brent leaned forward. "Then you better hurry. The window's closing fast." By midnight, the storage unit was empty. Adam and Eli were gone. They left the tied man behind with a warning carved into the wall in black marker. "You made us. Now we're unmaking you." They traveled by foot through the back roads, using an old GPS device from Cole's gear stash. Adam entered the coordinates found in one of the folders. It led them to a hilltop parking lot outside a diner called Red Pine Cafe. The boys watched from the shadows. Adam spotted a familiar truck. Eli whispered, "That's hers, from the photo." Adam nodded. "We wait, then we approach slow. If she screams or runs, we disappear." Inside the diner, Jessica sipped coffee with shaking hands. Grady sat across from her, watching the entrance. Terrence Locke was supposed to meet them in 20 minutes. Jessica stared at the front window. She couldn't eat, couldn't think. Her boys were alive, somewhere out there, probably cold, hungry, alone. Then she saw them, 2 boys, about 8. Same eyes, same face. She stood up too fast, knocking over her cup. Grady spun around. The boys hesitated outside the glass door. Adam stepped forward slowly, carefully. His hand hovered near his waistband. Jessica rushed to the door. "Adam," she whispered. Eli, they froze. Adam stared at her face. "You're her." Jessica dropped to her knees. "I'm your mother." Eli stepped beside him, still unsure. "How do we know?" Jessica reached into her coat and pulled out 2 hospital bracelets. Small, faded, she held them out. Tears filled Adam's eyes. He took one, then the other. The boys stepped into the diner, and the world felt whole for a second. Grady watched the reunion, but his eyes kept scanning the street. Terrence Locke arrived 10 minutes later, tall, gray-haired, with calm eyes and the presence of a man who had seen too much. "I came fast," he said. "You were right. We're not just dealing with rogue scientists here." He dropped a folder on the table. Inside were satellite images, intercepted communications, and a list of names. All tied to Project Dagger. Jessica looked at him. "Who's running it now?" Locke turned the page. A photo of Graham Cole stared back at them. Older now, scar above his eyebrow. Last known location, mobile facility in Georgia woods, 20 miles west of Augusta. Locke pointed. "This isn't just a lab anymore. It's a compound, armed guards, tech defenses. Probably more kids inside." Grady nodded. "Then we need to shut it down." Locke agreed. I can call in a few trusted men, but it's going to be messy. Adam stepped forward. I want to go. Jessica shook her head. No, you're just kids. Adam didn't flinch. We lived through that place. We know how to move through it. Eli stepped beside him. We want to end it. Locke studied them. They're not normal kids, Jessica. They've been trained. I say we let them help carefully. Jessica hesitated, then nodded. Grady spoke up. We move tomorrow at dawn. Meanwhile, in a dark control room deep within the Georgia compound, Graham Cole watched a flickering screen. It showed a fuzzy image of the Red Pine Cafe. His lips curled. Let them come. He turned to the man beside him. Activate Protocol 6. Prepare the others. The failures are coming home. The air was thick with tension as the sun broke over the Tennessee hills. In the diner's back room, maps covered the table. Jessica, Grady, Locke, and the boys stood over the blueprint of the compound in Georgia. Graham Cole built it like a fortress, Locke said, tapping the map. Perimeter cameras, armed watch points, dogs, a radio jammer, one entry point here guarded 24/7. Grady pointed at a shaded rectangle. And that underground service tunnel? Old maintenance shaft from when the land was part of a power plant, Locke replied. Still functional. That's our way in. Jessica looked at Adam and Eli. You're not going in the front. Understand? Adam didn't respond immediately. I know the layout better than anyone. I can get to the control room, Eli added. We'll be ghosts. No one will see us coming. Grady gave them both a sharp look. You follow orders, no hero stuff. They nodded. Locke clicked off the light. We move at 0400, no noise. No contact unless necessary. Jessica watched the boys as they left the room. Their faces were calm, focused. But they were still just kids, stolen from cribs and turned into weapons. She whispered to herself, bring them back to me. By nightfall, they crossed into Georgia in 2 black SUVs. The roads narrowed until they were nothing but gravel and dust. Locke drove the lead vehicle. Grady followed behind, with Jessica and the boys in the back seat. They reached a forest clearing just before midnight. This is it, Locke said. 2 miles through woods to the tunnel entrance. Keep your heads low and your hearts colder. They moved in silence. No one spoke. Even the woods seemed to understand the weight of what was coming. Meanwhile, inside the compound, alarms blinked silently. Cole stood in a glass-walled control room, overlooking a central training yard. Children, some no older than 6, moved in formation. Exercises, marching drills, silence. He watched with a smile. A soldier stepped into the room. Sir, we picked up movement on the northwest tree line. Cole didn't turn. Let them come. He tapped the earpiece inside his collar. Protocol 6, hold formation until breach. Then neutralize. At 3:45 a.m., Locke's team reached the old maintenance shaft. It was half covered in vines, hidden beneath a decayed wooden shack. Locke pried it open. A long ladder stretched down into blackness. Ready? He asked. Adam was first to climb down, then Eli. Jessica watched them vanish into the dark. Please come back, she whispered. Grady followed, then Locke. Below, the air was musty and damp. The tunnel was narrow, barely wide enough to move in single file. They carried silenced weapons and headlamps dimmed to red. They reached the sub-level hatch just before 4:30. Locke leaned in and whispered, From here, split. You boys go left, get to the control room. Me, Grady, and Jessica will go right, neutralize the generator. Adam nodded. No handshakes, no goodbyes, just a mission. As Adam and Eli crept down the corridor, the compound's heartbeat pulsed in the walls, machines humming, electric buzz in the vents. They passed through the dormitory sector. Through glass windows, they saw children sleeping in rows, neatly made beds, small uniforms hanging by footlockers. Eli whispered, They're just like we were. Adam stopped at a locked door marked Control Access, authorized only. He knelt and pulled a security card from his pocket, one he'd taken weeks ago before they escaped. Beep, the door clicked. They were in. Screens lined the walls, feed from every hallway, every sleeping chamber, every perimeter post. Adam scanned quickly. There. Cole's in the main command room. Eli found the power grid override. We kill lights on the west side. Gives Mom and the others cover. Adam nodded. Do it. Eli flipped the switches. Half the compound went dark. Elsewhere, Grady and Locke moved through the generator corridor, weapons raised. A guard turned the corner with a flashlight. Too late. Grady fired once, clean shot to the shoulder. The guard went down hard. Locke knelt by the panel and started planting charges. "We blow this place from the ground up," he said. Jessica covered the hallway with trembling hands. She was in it now, no more waiting. They rigged the final charge and moved out. Inside the control room, Cole stood perfectly still, watching his screens flicker. "They're in," he said calmly. 3 armed men stood behind him. One asked, "Do we engage?" "No," Cole replied. "We let them come. We still have leverage." He pulled open a drawer. Inside 2 dog tags. "Eli?" He smiled. "They'll want these." Adam and Eli were closing in on the command tower. They moved fast now, sprint, duck, stop. Their training kicked in naturally. They reached the door at the top of the stairs. Locked. Eli looked at Adam. "What if it's a trap?" Adam held up his gun. "Then we shoot our way out?" He kicked the door in. Inside stood Cole, calm, smiling, unarmed. "Welcome home, boys." The room was quiet. No one moved. Eli raised his gun. "Don't," Cole said, "or you'll never know the truth." Adam kept his aim steady. "We know enough." Cole raised both hands. "Really? Then tell me, do you know why you were taken? Do you know what your bloodline carries?" Adam's hands shook slightly. Cole saw it. "Your mother wasn't just a random target. She was chosen." Eli fired. The shot missed by inches, striking the wall behind Cole. Cole didn't flinch. "Fine," he said. "Then let's end this." Suddenly, gunfire rang out from the hallway. Guards. Adam grabbed Eli's arm and dragged him back into cover. The room turned into chaos, bullets tearing through glass, alarms howling, the red emergency lights casting a violent glow. Cole ran through a side door. Eli chased after him. Adam followed. Meanwhile, outside, Grady hit the detonator. The generator room erupted in flame. Lights across the compound blinked and died. Jessica grabbed a guard's rifle and shouted, "Get to the boys." They ran across the open yard, smoke everywhere. Sirens screamed, and the compound turned to confusion. Cole ran through a steel corridor toward the hangar at the back of the compound. Adam and Eli were on his heels. Eli fired. The bullet caught Cole's leg. He fell, blood spreading under his thigh. Adam reached him first, gun pointed. "No more lies," he said. Cole smirked. "You were made for this. Look at you, killing without blinking." Eli stood over him. "We're not like you." Cole's smirk faded. Then the heavy boots of Locke and Grady echoed behind them. Jessica caught up seconds later. She saw her boys standing tall, guns lowered, eyes clear. She dropped to her knees, and they ran into her arms. But behind them, the walls cracked. Flames licked through the hangar. Grady shouted, "We have to go now." They ran, together, as the sky filled with smoke and fire. Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you are watching from today and what time you are currently watching this video. If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more. The compound burned behind them. Jessica held both her sons in her arms as Grady and Locke led the group into the forest behind the facility. The trees swallowed them in darkness. Smoke followed them like a ghost, but they didn't stop. "We're not safe," Locke warned. That explosion might have taken out power, but not Cole's entire network. Adam nodded, sweat running down his face. "There are more like him." Jessica looked back toward the flames. "Are we being followed?" Locke raised his hand to hush everyone. The forest fell silent. Then faintly, twigs snapping, Grady lifted his pistol. "We keep moving. Now." An hour later, they reached a creek where a second SUV had been hidden in advance. One of Locke's men had driven it there before the raid. They loaded up in silence. Grady drove. Locke scanned the wrap behind them with a rifle resting on his lap. Jessica sat in the back seat between her sons. For the first time in years, she had them beside her. But nothing about it felt calm. They weren't headed toward peace. Just survival. Adam stared out the window, watching the trees flash by. "He said our mother was chosen." Jessica blinked. "What?" "Cole," Adam muttered. "He said you weren't random." Jessica shook her head. "He was manipulating you." "But what if he wasn't?" Eli asked. Locke turned slightly in his seat. "Let's deal with that later. Right now, we need to disappear. Completely." The group made it to a safe house deep in Alabama. It was an old farmhouse owned by a retired CIA contact of Locke's, a man named Harlan Beck. Built like a bunker, it had underground storage, multiple escape routes, and no digital footprint. Inside, Locke and Grady reviewed files from the stolen flash drive Brent had given them before the trailer shootout. What they found was disturbing. There were names, families, hospitals, dozens of cases, children labeled as candidates, mothers labeled as biological access points. Grady exhaled. This didn't end with Jessica. Locke tapped the screen. Look at this. Phase 3, deployment timeline 1994-2004. They were planning ahead. Jessica walked in quietly. Deployment for what? Locke stood. That's what we need to find out, and we don't have much time. There are still people out there watching this. Meanwhile, somewhere in Texas, inside a sleek office, lit only by the glow of a wall-sized screen, a woman in a dark suit watched footage of the compound's destruction. She stood still, sipping coffee. A man entered behind her. "We lost Cole," he said. She nodded. "Unfortunate, but expected. And the boys?" "Alive." She tapped a button. On the screen appeared a photo of Adam and Eli standing beside their mother at the cafe. The woman turned around. "Activate Protocol 9. If the mother lives, the story spreads. If the boys live, the system crumbles." The man nodded. "Understood. Back in Alabama, things weren't calm for long." Jessica cooked a simple dinner. The boys sat at the kitchen table, playing with a deck of old cards. Grady stood watch at the window while Locke scanned radio channels for chatter. Then it came, static, followed by a broken signal. 2 targets located. Farmhouse perimeter. Approach with caution. Grady's eyes shot wide. "They found us." Locke grabbed his rifle. "Boys, in the basement." Now Jessica rushed them toward the hidden door under the kitchen rug. The old hinges screamed as they pulled it open. As the boys dropped into the dark below, bullets cracked through the living room window. Grady fired back. Jessica screamed, grabbing a revolver off the table. Locke covered the hallway as 3 men in black tactical gear burst through the front door. One went down from a clean shot to the neck. The others returned fire, the air filled with gunpowder and shouting. Grady tackled Jessica behind the kitchen counter. One of the gunmen flanked left, until Eli appeared from the basement with a shotgun. He fired once. The man spun and dropped. Adam followed, grabbed the man's rifle, and tossed it to Grady. "Nice timing," Grady said. Adam didn't smile. "They're not just here to kill. They're here to wipe everything." More footsteps outside. "They've surrounded us," Locke said. "We need an exit." Jessica turned to the boys. "Through the cellar tunnel, now." They grabbed supplies and weapons. Grady covered the back door as they slipped down into the cellar, then followed. Locke rigged a grenade on a tripwire behind them. The last thing they heard before the tunnel door closed was the explosion upstairs. They moved through a narrow shaft that stretched 300 feet into the woods. It opened behind a hill covered in pine needles. Everyone emerged breathing hard, covered in dust. "We've got one shot now," Locke said. "Go public." Jessica looked confused. "What do you mean?" Locke pulled a USB drive from his jacket. "The flash drive. It has everything, names, experiments, even links to sitting officials. If we don't leak this, they'll keep coming." Grady nodded. "We go to someone who can't be bought." The next night, under the cover of darkness, Jessica and Locke met with an old journalist in Atlanta named Clarice Navarro. She ran an independent news network that specialized in government leaks. Clarice read the documents in silence for over an hour. Then she looked up, pale and shaken. "This will burn the world down," she whispered. "Are you ready for that?" Jessica stared at her. "I've been ready since 1978. By dawn, the story had gone live. Exclusive. Secret U.S. experiment involved abducted infants, trained as soldiers, hidden for decades. It spread like fire, names, dates, facilities, victims. Public outrage exploded. Lawmakers scrambled. Jessica, Grady, and the boys went dark. Locke set up a final secure location deep in the Rocky Mountains, untouchable for now. But even as the world learned the truth, even as people demanded justice, even as the names behind the project were dragged into the light, Jessica knew one thing for sure: this wasn't over. There were still people missing, still places unsearched. And the most dangerous people were the ones who hadn't shown their faces yet. Far across the ocean, a man in a military base stared at the headlines. He turned to the wall, where two more photos hung. One was Adam, the other a boy no one had seen yet. Underneath, Subject 6 activated. 6 months after the leak, the world was still in shock. The government denied the truth at first. Then came the resignations, arrests, hearings. Whistleblowers stepped forward, scientists, nurses, guards. Each told a story that matched Jessica's. Babies stolen, experiments, indoctrination, training facilities hidden in plain sight. Project Dagger had been very real, but it wasn't dead yet. Some pieces of it still lived, buried deep. Jessica, Adam, Eli, Grady, and Locke were hiding in a mountain safe house in Colorado. It was cold, quiet, and far from any road. They used no phones, no internet. Just radios and burner lines. They stayed hidden because they knew one thing. Someone was still out there, and they were waiting. One night, a letter arrived at the cabin's front porch. No footprints. No sound. Just a single envelope sealed in wax left on the stone steps. Locke opened it. Inside was a black and white photo. It showed Adam and Eli taken weeks earlier when they were hiding in Atlanta. Behind them, in the blurred background, stood a boy. Same age, same sharp eyes, but not them. On the back of the photo were 4 words, handwritten in red ink. Subject 6 is awake. Locke dropped the photo on the table. He's real, Grady leaned over. Who is Subject 6? Adam's voice was quiet. The other one, Jessica turned slowly. What other one? Adam swallowed hard. They told us there were 7. 7 babies taken in total, but only 3 survived the early training. Eli added me, Adam, and 1 more. He disappeared after the first year. We thought he died. Locke's hands tightened. You were never supposed to meet. They separated you. Grady pointed to the photo. Then who delivered this? They found us again. Locke nodded, and they want us to know they did. Jessica turned to her sons. Do you know his name? Adam hesitated. They called him Cole. Back in Washington, in a secured military base hidden beneath an old Cold War radar facility, Cole sat in a steel room. He was quiet, dressed in black fatigues. His posture perfect, eyes blank, hands still. Across from him sat the woman in the dark suit, the same woman who ordered Jessica's death. She slid a folder across the table. Your brothers have gone rogue. Cole opened the file and looked at the photos. Jessica, Adam, Eli, Grady, Locke. They want to end us, she said. You need to find them. Finish it. Cole looked up. What if I don't? The woman leaned in. Then we erase you too. At the cabin, Jessica stared out the window. She'd barely slept in days. I want to stop running, she told Locke. He nodded. Then we face it head on. Grady pulled out a satellite phone. We need to go on the offensive. Find Cole before he finds us. Locke frowned. I have 1 contact left. A data analyst named Race. He worked with Cole back in the day, then vanished. If anyone knows where Cole was trained, it's him. Jessica turned. Where is he? Detroit. 2 days later, the team landed in Detroit under fake identities. They stayed in a rundown motel off the highway, across from an auto junkyard. Riss agreed to meet in a nearby warehouse. He was thin, older, and wore thick glasses. Nervous, eyes always scanning the shadows. You shouldn't have come, he said. Grady stepped forward. Tell us what you know. Reese pulled out a tablet. Cole wasn't like the others. He wasn't just trained, he was modified. Not biologically, psychologically. They stripped empathy, made him follow only one voice. Jessica's eyes narrowed. Whose voice? Riss turned the screen. It was the woman from Washington. Her name, Rebecca Stroud, former DARPA advisor, current private security CEO, billion-dollar contracts, and a hand in every black project from Dagger to drone warfare. She owns Cole, Reese said, and she's sending him after you. That night the motel was quiet, too quiet. Jessica sat on the bed with Adam and Eli, helping them reassemble their gear bags. Grady cleaned weapons. Locke stared out the window. Then a sharp tap echoed at the door. 1 tap, then silence. Locke raised his rifle. Grady nodded and moved to the side of the door. They were going to ambush. Suddenly Adam and Eli burst through side doors, guns raised. Grady dropped one from the rooftop. Locke lit up the ground team with a scoped rifle. The building turned to chaos, gunfire, smoke, shouting. Jessica grabbed Cole's arm. You're not them. You're not her, he froze, for the first time uncertain. Then he looked at the dead men around them. Run, he said. What? Take them. Jessica hesitated. Come with us. But he shook his head. I was made for endings." He turned and walked into the smoke. Grady dragged Jessica out. They escaped just before the building exploded. Cole's doing. A final message: no more hunting, no more hiding. 6 months later, Jessica, Adam, and Eli live quietly in Oregon under new names. Grady and Locke keep watching, listening, keeping the peace from the shadows. Project Dagger is officially shut down. Rebecca Stroud vanished. No charges, no trial. But somewhere Jessica knows someone is still watching, still waiting, but for now, her sons are free, and she's not afraid anymore. If you like this story, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Also, to strengthen our community, let us know in the comments where you are watching from and what time you are currently watching this video.